Jake's a coward. You're fighting dudes 30, 40, 30 pounds smaller than you, and you still got walked down and you still got bullied in there. Jake Paul, he knocked out Mike Perry. It was a TKO. There's, of course, with every Jake Paul fight, there's a bunch of shenanigans still. Mike, you know, he needs to keep his hands up. Jake will only fight dudes who are way shorter than him or way smaller than him or way older than him. He's never fought somebody his age, his size, and he always just tries to have the advantage. So, in my opinion, that was Mike Perry gained more from that than anybody. Still, what did I say before? Jake will only fight dudes who he gets on short notice, who are smaller than him, and who are older, right? This Mike Perry fight was his first real fight. And even then, he's still fighting someone way smaller than him. Perry's like the real-life Rocky. In my opinion, Jake didn't win that fight. Perry won the fight because everything was stacked in Jake's favor. Low-key, he's kind of cheating. He's kind of a cheater without cheating. Perry went in there, you know, gave it his all, went out there, walked him down, you know, took his best shots, never got put to sleep. So, in my opinion, Perry's the winner for the night. Even when the final knockdown happened, right? This is what I'm talking about. These dudes are cheaters, straight up. When the final knockdown happened, right? Instantly, the referee's calling for 5. He didn't even give Perry a full 10 count. He went straight from 5 to 7, you know, and then Perry stumbled. If Jake fights anybody his size and his age, he's not going to be able to knock them out. His size, his age, his experience level, he's not going to be able to knock him out. This dude is a coward because he will only fight people who are smaller than him. And when they're smaller than him, he has longer reach. So his specific fight style is based on him being able to have a longer jab than the person he's fighting and him going backwards. Let's say he fights someone like Deontay Wilder. He's going to get mauled. Someone like Daniel Dubois, he's going to get mauled. That's why I call him a coward. You know, you want to keep fighting MMA guys, fight Alex Pereira. Fight Alex Pereira. Fight Darren Till. That style that he's doing is not going to work against someone like Darren Till. He needs a shorter man, a smaller man, or someone who's way older, right? So that to me is not a fighter. You know, you're coming out in a gladiator outfit, like it's gladiator. You ain't no gladiator. You ain't no gladiator. Matter of fact, if you guys ever seen the movie Gladiator, the politician who wanted to be like a gladiator, like a real dog, he went and he had the real guy who I believe Spartacus, and he like had him beat up before the match and stabbed him before the match. So when they went out there and fought, he was way compromised. That's what Jake Paul does. Exact same MO, exact same thing. I hope Mike Tyson knocks him out. I lost a little bit of money on the fight tonight, but it was just a great bet. You know, couldn't take the bet. If Perry would have just kept his hands up a little bit more and had a better footwork, we could have seen an upset. Jake was getting tired. You know, also, did you notice in, I believe it was, what, the 6th or 5th round, when the doctor came to check Mike Perry, that was the round that Jake was the most tired in. So they do stuff like this, in my opinion. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. In my opinion, they went and checked Mike Perry to give Jake a little bit of extra time to recover. It's absolute nonsense. It's soft. It's pathetic. You know, I really, really hope, I'm rooting for Mike to go out there and knock this dude out, you know, finish this dude. I'm sick and tired of the nonsense. I'm sick and tired of this dude. You know, it's just soft. You know, he's making a mockery of real fighters. He's making a mockery of the fight game. He's making a mockery of the sport, you know. There's weight classes for a reason. Mike Perry on his heaviest day weighs 196. Jake Paul on his heaviest day, he weighs 230, 235. And he might be on some Mexican supplements. You know what I'm saying? But it's a joke. It's really a joke. You know, you keep fighting these dudes on short notice and you want people to respect you as a fighter. You keep fighting dudes smaller than you. You want people to respect you as a fighter. You know, you're not a fighter. You're not like someone like Mike Perry. Mike Perry's a real dog. He's a real fighter. Came out there on short notice, fought a dude in a different sport, and went 7 rounds. You know, went up there, had his mouthpiece in. He didn't have his hands up, took your best shots. You still couldn't knock him out. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if he fights somebody his size, okay, he's not going to be able to knock him out. He doesn't have power. He doesn't have power. The only reason it looks like he has power is because he's fighting dudes way smaller than him. When you really look at it, who is he knocked out that is his size? Oh, wait. Nobody. Who? Ryan Brolin, who didn't even try to fight him? Who? Andre August, who didn't even try to fight him? Andre August was still smaller than him. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I can't respect it. I really can't respect it. In my opinion, you know, Mike Perry won that fight, you know, because when it comes to a fight, there's so much things stacked up against him that he went out there and conquered. You know, I don't respect these rigged fights. You know, this fight is not rigged, but it is rigged because you're fighting somebody way smaller than you, short notice, all these different things. You know, this is the same MO for every single one of his fights. So it is what it is. You know, I already know some of you weirdos in the comments are gonna be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I don't care. My win rate's still 80%. We're still out here making money. We lost a little bit of money tonight, but it is what it is. Some things I noticed in the fight was, you know, Jake was super nervous for this fight. In the locker room, he's usually never really sweaty like that. He warmed up real hard, warmed up real properly. Perry was laser focused. The thing is, the weight and the size difference really played a big role in this fight because without that size difference, that jab doesn't keep landing. Every time Perry's able to land a punch on him, Jake's able to land a punch because he has a longer reach and he's significantly taller. So that's why if they're the same size, his game plan doesn't work, you know, and he doesn't land as much power, as much damage that he landed in the fight. Also, I noticed Jake constantly has a new boxing coach. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be. When you're fighting somebody like Mike Tyson, like, for example, Deontay Wilder, his downfall was he kept switching coaches at a certain point. He got to a certain level becoming Deontay Wilder, being the Bronze Bomber, and then at a certain point, whenever he lost to Fury and Malik Scott threw in the towel, he started like switching coaches quite a bit, and that was he started to lose. Same thing with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, he kind of started bouncing coaches, and that's when he was getting beat up by Francis Ngannou. So, you know, a couple more things with this. You know, in my opinion, Perry won the fight for tonight because he went out there and he's really living like a Rocky story. You know, he went out there, didn't get dropped or didn't get knocked out clean, took a lot of damage, walked, you know, Jake Paul back against a guy who's bigger than him, taller than him, younger than him, all this stuff. And he really showed, you know, he made himself look good out there, even though on a technical aspect, he should have kept his hands up for sure. On a technical aspect, he should have used his jab more. He should have had more footwork. But he comes from a sport that's bare knuckle, and they don't need to do that. You know, they just go out there and they brawl. So this was a tailor-made fight for Jake Paul. You know, it really was a tailor-made fight. But there's no brownie points. There's no respect points because you beat someone up who's literally 30, 40 pounds smaller than you and way shorter than you. You know what I'm saying? Here's the tail of the tape. You know, the reach. They didn't even show. This is how much cowards these dudes are. They didn't even show the height difference. Oh no, they did. My bad. My bad. So Perry 5'10", Jake 6'1". So again and again, 7'6" reach, 7'1" reach. And to be honest, this is probably skewed a little bit. Jake probably had a longer reach, or Perry had a shorter reach than what they're showing. They're just trying to make it look as if it was an even fight, a fair fight, and it really wasn't. You know, it really, really wasn't. So, in my opinion, Perry really did his thing out there, and he's like a real life Rocky character. You let Perry gain, 20 pounds, I think that fight goes completely different. Jake doesn't have power. He literally doesn't have power. Only time he has power is he's fighting someone way smaller than him. So as far as the Mike Tyson fight goes, it's still on the table. Mike Tyson is 58 years old. I think Mike Tyson is going to knock him out. And maybe I'm biased because I want to see him get knocked out, but I think Mike Tyson is going to knock him out because the size, Jake really doesn't have power. Tyson, he's coming in at 230. He's an expert boxer. It's kind of like Floyd Mayweather. He's older and he's still super skillful. And you see, he just understands boxing to a high degree. Jake Paul fought a dude who's a bare knuckle boxer with no footwork, way smaller than him, who's just really, really tough. And he struggled in that fight. So you're fighting a man who boxed his entire life and who was at the best, highest level, even though he's almost 60 years old. He's a big guy. And we've seen George Foreman come in the game and win a championship at 50. So I think that Mike Tyson is going to go out there and really pull it off, because someone needs to pull it off, whether it's Darren Till, whether it's Mike Tyson, whoever. Someone needs to put a stop to this nonsense. Also, earlier in the fight, I believe in the first round, Mike Perry took Jake Paul down. Beautiful takedown, by the way. If he comes to MMA, he's going to get destroyed, because in MMA, we have better. We don't really do these like rigged fights. You know what I'm saying? MMA, you come in, your first fight, you might fight a dude who's really, really good. So in MMA, I think Jake Paul's going to get worked. You can't really have these fights where you're way bigger than somebody and, these weird ass matchups. It doesn't really happen in MMA unless he tries to rig the game MMA, but he's in PFL. It's not going to happen. So, to be honest, I would gladly fight Jake Paul in an MMA fight. I would gladly fight him in an MMA fight. And I'd also gladly fight him in a boxing fight as well. Obviously everybody wants to fight him, but, I see a lot of holes in this game. I see a lot of holes. And the only reason he's able to get these highlight finishes is because he's just way bigger than the guys he's fighting. It's cowardice. You're literally going out there and like bullying dudes who are smaller, older. You're not a fighter. You're a pussy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're literally a pussy. It's just super cowardice. I can't express it enough how much it pisses me off, because it's just not what the fight sports and the fight game is built off of. Look at someone like John Jones. John Jones goes out there and he fights the best guy every single time. He fights dudes who are bigger than him. He fights dudes who are knocking people out, who are dangerous. He fights every single time he's fighting a dangerous fight. Someone like Alex Pereira. Every single time Alex Pereira is fighting a dangerous fight. Like he's fighting Yuri Prochazka. Yuri Prochazka and him are similar size. Alex might be slightly taller, but it's like you're never going to get the respect to someone like John Jones. You're never going to get the respect to someone like Yuri Prochazka or Alex Pereira, or Francis Ngannou, for example. Francis Ngannou's never. Imagine if Francis Ngannou went and he tried to fight people who were light heavyweights or middleweights, when Francis is a 285-pound solid heavyweight fighter who could knock most people out. That's what Jake is trying to do, So imagine Francis Ngannou fighting Robert Whittaker, right? Imagine Francis Ngannou going and fighting Dominic Reyes, or fighting, that's even a better, like a closer matchup. But imagine Francis Ngannou going in and fighting someone like Khalil Roundtree, or even just a little bit lower, because It's completely different when you're fighting somebody who's 230 pounds and you're fighting somebody who's 285 pounds, who's young and skilled. You know, so is this something I can't get behind? You know, we lost a little bit of money this time, but it's all good. We'll be back, and we'll get him on the next one. You know, there were some really good UFC fights tonight as well. You know, Dong Hoi Choi went out there and cracked the dude. You know, there was some dude who landed a 38-piece combo punch, you know, but right now, since my mind, I'm so pissed off at the Perry-Paul fight, lost a little bit of bread, but it's no big deal. You know, we'll get back, still winning, still 80% win rate. And that's what it is. You know, I see this fight playing out with Tyson. I feel it's going to either be, there's not going to be any knockout, or Mike is going to knock him out. I think it's going to go, you know, in the shorter rounds. Jake Paul runs from everybody he fights, which is ironic because he's usually the bigger man. He's actually always the bigger man when he fights. Even when he fought Tommy Fury, he's bigger than Tommy Fury. They're more closer in weight, but Tommy Fury isn't like an incredible boxer, you know. So I'm just sick of the nonsense, you know, and I want to see him get his ass beat. You know, call me a hater. Maybe I'm the optimal hater, but it's just frustrating, super frustrating. For Perry, he needs to keep his hands up, you know, and I think it's going to be a great learning lesson. He's a real Rocky, you know. In Rocky, the first movie, he lost, but he came back and he became who he became. So I want to see Perry go back to the drawing board, you know, come back and bare knuckle as a better fighter, more defense, hands up, more footwork. He hasn't really been boxing very long. Going into this fight, he was 0-1 in boxing. So completely different sport for him. And he's fighting a man who's bigger than him, younger than him, longer reach, who has more experience in that sport of boxing. So in my opinion, he went, 7 rounds and didn't get knocked out. He's the winner of the night. You know, he's the winner of the night. You know, he came up against a lot. I respect that guy a lot. It's beautiful to see him and his wife in the corner, and you know, they're just working together and making the dreams come true. I hope that dude gets all the money he deserves and just continues having an amazing fight career. You know, I'm sure with this fight he made some good money and he could probably sit on the beach somewhere, but he will be back to the game. As far as myself, I'm back in the gym, and you can expect to fight for me probably in November, maybe November. Who knows? Maybe October. You know, so we got August, September, October. So maybe October you'll see me in the cage again, and yeah. And who knows what the future holds? So much love. Learn to fight. Peace.